Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm showing you how to paint a posy of hydrangea and roses, and also how to adjust a finished picture if you're not satisfied with it. I painted a background in blues and greens, put some white on it, blended it in with a powder brush, and added some pink just for a little more interest in the background. I buy powder brushes from the dollar store for blending. I find they work well, and you can buy a number of them and have a perfectly dry one each time you need it. This liner brush is a bit bent, but it still works, and I'm drawing in the stems with the liner brush and raw sienna. I like raw sienna. It's a nice neutral. It doesn't show up too much in the final product, and it gives me a good guideline. I know where I'm going to put my flowers, I know where I'm going to put my stems, and it will all blend in the final painting. I made a gigantic mistake which I'm going to show you how to correct further on, and you can see it right here in this sketch. I put 4 flowers, 1, 2, 3, 4, a big blob in the middle of my canvas, and it's not really attractive, is it? I always say you should paint things in odd numbers because it's more charming to the eye. The other thing I did was I had one thing in my mind, white roses, and the first thing I did was paint deep pink and deep blue, which obviously is going to affect the final color. Even if you put white on top of it, it will come out pinkish and bluish. Not what I'd had in mind initially at all. So I'll show you how I correct that too. One thing I did manage to get right is an odd number of leaves. I counted them up at the end. I had 8 leaves, if you count the rose leaves as well as the hydrangea leaves. And I was pleased with that because I didn't have to correct that one. Rose leaves grow in groups of 3 on every bush that I've ever seen, so I don't know if there are breeds of rose that have different numbers, but when I paint rose leaves, I paint them in groups of 3. I'm painting in acrylics, and once they're dry, you can paint any color over the top. And so here I'm trying to lighten up my roses to a paler, whitish pink. And I was pretty successful in lightening the roses and the hydrangeas. Acrylic's wonderful for that. You can paint anything over the top and it will correct things. You can also use gesso, and gesso gives you that blank canvas feeling again. And I sometimes do that if I'm not satisfied with a painting, and I will paint a patch of gesso on there and simply start from the beginning. I don't do that often. I've learned to let some paintings go and just leave it until I can bring myself to repaint the whole canvas with gesso and start again. It's something you have to learn when you're an artist because you get quite attached to your paintings. I do, at any rate. And there'll sometimes be a little bit of a painting that I don't like, but I'll like the rest of it and I don't want to lose it. That's when I do actually try to correct things. And in this case, I liked the painting enough, but I didn't like the evenness of it. And so I show you how I paint out an area and make it less of a block of flowers that blocks your eye and leads nowhere, to something more attractive, something that your eye has a chance to roam around and take in things and be interested by. I lighten up the hydrangeas too with titanium white. I had intended in the very beginning to make white flowers. I don't know how I got off track. I probably had not had enough coffee or something. But the final painting is still pink and blue. I didn't quite correct it to white flowers, but I got closer and I was happy with my final result. I hope you like it, and if you have any comments, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'm always interested to hear what you have to say, and I like positive comments. I will say that. In every painting I do, I start off with a mid-tone, to which I add a shadow side and a highlight side. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm adding a shadow side. I've decided the light is coming from the right and everything on the left, and the underside of the flowers will be in shade, in shadow. And that's what I'm doing. I still have not figured out that I'm not painting the picture I want to paint at this point. But I'm still showing you how to paint. So I didn't cut the video too short because I thought people like to see how to apply paint, don't they? In this way. I'm sure there are many other ways. I'm sure there are many artists out there who will have a different way of applying their paint, not bother with the shadow and highlight the way I do. But this is the way I do it. So I can only show you that. I started painting more than 30 years ago, and I've developed my own method of doing things, and I find it hard to do anything different. I do every now and then try something like neurographic art or wash and ink and things that interest me. But when I'm painting in acrylics or oils, I use this mid-tone highlight and shadow method, and I always do them in the same order. I do the mid-tone first, then the shadow, and then I put on my highlight. I leave the highlight till last because it generally involves titanium white, which as it dries dulls down, and so I have to reinforce it. So I leave that to the last thing because I can have a cup of tea while I'm waiting for paint to dry. As poses go, this is really not too bad, and somebody's going to say, why did you bother changing it? But to my eye, it lacked a level of charm that I like to see in my work, and that's why I changed it, because I could see that I only needed a little change in one corner of the painting to make a big difference, and I think you'll see at the end how that is. It's always good to stand back from your painting and take a look and see where you could add things, where you could change things, what needs doing next. And I decided to reinforce my stems, and quite often on my stems and leaves I'll use alizarin crimson. One, because I love alizarin crimson, and two, because I think it makes the painting more lively to have that little depth of brightness and color. Alizarin crimson is transparent, and it allows the other color to come through, but it adds this excuse me, I'm getting my tongue all twisted. It adds this red glaze to the painting, which adds depth. In adding a highlight to the stem, I mix alizarin crimson with yellow and get a nice orangey colour. It's nice and bright, stands out, it looks like a highlight. And I sometimes mix a little titanium white in with that too, just to bring it up a notch. I really think this picture as a posy is quite nice. I put in the centres of the open roses with a dark colour. I think I used raw umber in this case, and then I put a bright colour to highlight the top of it, and I usually use either the orange that I've mixed up for the stem or just primary yellow, something nice and bright to make it pop on top of those, what are they? Stamens, I think they call them. I've been painting roses for years. You'd think I'd know all the parts by now, but I forget every now and then. I made that stem a little too thick on the upper right there, so I took it out with a damp brush. You can remove paint with a damp brush as long as it's a very clean brush with no other colour on it, and slim down the stem. When I'm painting rose petals, I pull them in from the outer edge in toward the center of the flower. And for the petals that we only see the tops of, I do a sideways swipe from right to left. And for the petals that are underneath, I pull those from the outer edge into the center. I do the same for leaves. I always sort of see that center vein and pull the length of the leaf from the outside edge in toward the center vein. I feel that it makes a more natural looking leaf or petal. Hydrangeas are a ball of florets, hundreds of little tiny four-petaled flowers. And I don't paint all four petals. I usually paint about three. Sometimes, if I've got one floret that's facing on, I will paint all four petals, but you'd have to look hard to find that one. Mostly they're threes, twos, or even a single petal stroke, and it will still look like a hydrangea when you're finished. And I usually put, for the base, I usually put petal strokes just because it just adds that much depth and texture. But you don't have to. You could just paint straight color and not do petal strokes. I've even done it with a sponge. Very recently, I just put a sponge base on and then painted my florets over the top of that, and it looked quite nice, I've got to say. So it's up to you what you want to do individually. You make up your own mind about that. But I'm telling you, almost anything works. So here's where I decided to change it. I used some blue and some green later on and painted out that hydrangea that's at the top left-hand corner. And I painted very carefully around the petals of the rose. And I'm going to put a rose bud in there because that gives me 3 roses, or 2.5 roses if you like, and a single hydrangea. And that gives me my odd numbers, which I always say is more charming to the eye. And I think you'll agree with me that the painting is improved by doing this. I'm putting on some green here. I want to sort of make that background look like it's always been there. So I'm trying to sort of match it with the rest of the background. I think it already looks better without even putting anything in, but I'm going to put this rosebud in. Buds have 5 sepals. You could do less, you could do 3. Well, I think 2 roses and a bud and 1 hydrangea definitely look better. It looks less of a clump. It gives your eyes somewhere to roam around. And yeah, I'm pleased with that. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video and learned from my mistakes, and thank you very much for watching. If you can find time, please like, share and subscribe. That helps my channel grow, and I'd very much appreciate it if you could do that. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.